Our story begins in the dark castle of the current demon lord of this era. The outward appearance and atmosphere of the castle were harsh and unforgiving, befitting the presiding lord. Tonight is vastly different from a normal one. The massive gates of the demon lord's chambers have been forcefully kicked open. A sinister smile crept up on the demon lord's mouth, as there was only one person who could have gotten this far into her domain: the legendary hero. That's right. The brave hero has finally reached the last step of any hero's mission, and that's entering the demon lord's throne room and presumably fighting to the death. This means that this era's hero is not only strong, but courageous enough to come and challenge the overlord of the powerful demon race. The demon lord gave her praise to the hero for toughing it out and braving his way to get this far. It is brave, stupid, and most likely the final act that he will ever do in his life. But before the exchanging of blows, drawing of blood, gritting of teeth, even happens in the supposed final fight, the sound of a blade dropping to the cold, hard floors can already be heard. This was not what the demon lord was expecting at all. She was all in on fighting tooth and nail to prevail against the champion of the human race after all. Instead, what she got was a young man with crimson hair and dead eyes, crying while laughing like a crazy person. He looked disheveled and tired instead of the perfect picture of a valiant hero challenging the evil overlord. This guy was stumbling and mumbling his words to just end him now. So, in a bizarre twist of fate, no fights happened that night. The hero was instead pulled into the demon lord's lap as she pats his head with one hand while smoking a cigarette on the other. She asserted that in life, both good and bad things happen. Giving up your own after one or two bad events is never the way to go. She inwardly thought that humans are such cruel creatures, and this boy is evidence of that. They forced a 17-year-old handsome boy to fight against an all-powerful being, a demon lord like her. The poor young man was pulled out from a different world and was forced to risk his own life to protect a stupid king, his poorly treated slaves, and the endlessly corrupt kingdom. And so, this is how the story of a depressed hero and the demon queen started. Where will this story go? I don't know, but it will definitely be interesting. Without any special reason, the demon queen has decided to take care of the handsome young hero for now. She went as far as tending to him, giving him a comfortable bed to sleep on, while she spends her day sitting nearby, just lounging around and chain-smoking. Still, the irony was not lost on her. She was the demon lord of this realm after all. Helping the hero, whose main quest is to ultimately kill her, is a little odd, to say the least. After some time, the young man had finally opened his tired and bloodshot eyes slowly. The first thing he did was ask where he was, and he immediately heard a familiar voice perk up nearby. He thought that he had finally fulfilled his wish to die and was just chilling in paradise now. That thought made him contort his mouth into a weird-looking smile combined with his dead eyes. The demon lord saw this and jumped in fright. This young man had such a creepy smile. Once he finally realized that he was not alone in this room, he also jumped in fright and promptly asked if Madame Demon Lord had also somehow died and joined him in paradise. She quickly dispelled that assumption, though. The depressed hero felt his body's various injuries and reckoned that he was still alive. The next question in his mind was where in the hell he really was. She casually explained that they are in one of the rooms of the Demon Lord's castle, on account of the hero crying so much that his eyes turned as red as his hair, and eventually fell asleep on her lap. That's when the Demon Queen herself carried him over to rest in this room. Now that he was given the rundown of the situation, the next thing he wants to know is when does this woman plan to finally kill him? She lazily answered that there won't be any killing happening. She just won't kill the hero, at least not now. Instead of feeling relief from hearing that he gets to keep his life, he looked even more downtrodden and disappointed instead. The halls of the Demon Lord's castle looked dark and bleak, the only source of light in the room being the moonlight from the open windows and the spark of the Demon Queen's cigarette. As she walked through her domain, she couldn't help but ponder just what in the world was wrong with this hero. Also, he's been here for quite some time now, and she doesn't even know his name. Thinking about him constantly got her blushing just a little bit. That guy was weird, or maybe she got it all wrong. And she was the one being weird in this scenario. She was running errands all around the castle when she was halted by the sight of a bright light coming from the front. On the massive balcony on one side of the castle stood the young man that she rescued. He was just standing there, unmoving like a statue under the bright light of the shining stars in the night sky. It made the Demon Queen pause. She walked closer and asked the hero if he was enjoying the stars tonight. The young man barely paid any attention to her, let alone her casual question. He just gave a nonchalant hi. Then the young man stated that when he looks at the stars, he remembers one of his good friends. To that personal bit of information, the Demon Queen did not know how to respond. She might not know what words to say, but the beauty of the night sky reflected upon her eye and beautiful face were plenty enough as a response. The Demon Queen thought that this might just be the right time to ask the hero his name. The brief look of life in his eyes was gone once again after hearing that question. He had almost forgotten his original name. Everyone in this world just calls him a hero. Sometimes people call him Hey or Kill the Monster or Little Shit or Untalented Dumbass Monster and many more. Demon Queen reeled him back a little and clarified that she wanted to know what his parents named him. That clears things up nicely. The hero's name is Itami. While still looking up at the stars, not letting her eyes let go for a second, the Demon Queen wanted to present Itami with an offer. Hearing those words come out of her mouth in such a sultry voice made the depressed hero blush. His tears were starting to well up again for some reason. She noticed this and was confused once again. It seems like this guy really likes crying every time they interact with each other. Itami started trying his hardest to wipe the tears away, but they just kept on flowing out. It's just that in this cruel world, he was called by his original name only 2 times. He was just glad to hear it again after a long time. She did not think that it was that big of a deal. She did not think that the human world had been even harsher on this young man than she initially thought. Demon Queen wanted to continue what she wanted to say when she was about to call him hero. She made the conscious decision to stop herself midway through. She wanted to call him by his real name, not by the name and title that the kingdom has forcefully thrust upon him, Itami. The sympathetic Demon Queen took a quick step back, turning to Itami with a wide smile that flashed her adorably terrifying monster fang. With her arms stretched wide along with that beautiful smile on that blushing face, her demonic wings did not look so grim at all. She announced that starting today, Itami is free to live in her castle and serve the role of being her personal bodyguard. She promised that everyone would be calling him by his real name from now on. The sight of this supposedly ruthless demon overlord looked more like an angel sent from above in Itami's perspective. Every time she says his name, his broken heart repairs itself bit by bit. And when she finally said that he would be happy here, the tears that were born from grief and debilitating sadness were replaced with tears of comfort and hope. For the second time in his life, Itami's wounded heart and soul began to heal ever so slightly. The emotion-filled night has passed, and the sun has risen on the Demon Lord's castle. Itami and the Queen were walking the halls together. It's a good thing that the demons in here don't know how the hero actually looks like. This way, Itami can freely roam the castle under the guise of a new human ally. That last bit of information came quite as a surprise. He did not know that the demon faction had human allies to the point of making it possible for him to roam the castle without any demon batting an eye. She confirmed that they do have some arrangements with a few selected humans. Besides Itami, there are 3 more people that are formally members of the Demon Lord army, though they are in human kingdoms right now as spies. On an unrelated note, she actually wanted to bring up something extremely important to Itami. She looked at him and only now noticed the sorry state of the young man. This guy was wearing a tattered homeless hoodie and shitty pants. His whole fit was cooked, from head to toe. It was abysmal. The Demon Queen's eyes lingered on his hands. They were full of battle scars from who knows how many death-defying duels that he endured. When she continued scanning him up and down, she just had to ask how many times and when was the last time this young man had even changed his clothes. Itami meekly explained that he hasn't had the chance to change clothes since arriving in this foreign world. That cannot be possible. As far as the Demon Queen knows, the hero was summoned 2 years ago, and the Human King announced his arrival to shock the entire world back then. That was actually false information, as Itami arrived in this foreign world 2.5 years ago. For the first confusing half year in this place, he was chained to a table where a creepy guy conducted painful and inhumane experiments on him, day in, day out. After that torturous 6 months, he was sent out into the world with the merciless king assigning him so many quests that he had no time to even change his clothes. It was so bad that he had no time to even take a bath even if he wanted to. Just when the Demon Queen thought it could not get any worse, Itami just casually dropped a new trauma bomb while they were strolling the castle. She almost teared up after hearing this inhumane treatment of a poor and confused young man in the hands of humanity. Demon Queen felt so bad that she was compelled to give him new clothes. And now that Itami has mentioned it, the smell of death really does follow him wherever he goes, and it was not just in a metaphorical sense. He literally smells like his odor can kill a man outrightly. Before clothes, what Itami needs is a bath, and an extremely urgent one at that. He just smells so bad that even the demonic overlord could not bear it. A sudden Valentine's Day poster in your feed, just to remind all the single guys that even a depressed hero has a girlfriend and they don't. There will definitely be more depressed heroes in reality after this. And to cope with their depression, they will have to go in search of their personal demon queen who will become the queen of their heart. Let's go back to our story. Today's mission is getting Itami a new set of clothes to get him out of his stinky starter kit. There is one castle attendant that could help with that problem. Her name is Saibet, and the demon queen needs her as soon as possible. This tanned demonic maid with a single horn on the left side of her head was just one call away to attend to her master's demands. Her curtsy might look graceful and full of disciple, but in reality, Saibet is quite a troublemaker. That smug smile alone is an obvious sign that she is not your typical subservient and well-behaved maid. The demon queen was surprisingly respectful to her attendant. She takes care of her people very well. She promptly introduced Itami to Saibet, the demon queen's personal maid and good friend. Saibet respectfully curtsied with grace once again, but the look she started giving him after that was quite sticky and curious. She did not hesitate to get right into his business, trying to touch him while praising his nice-looking face. He might look good, but he looks weak in Saibet's opinion. That's only natural since he's human after all. Saibet turned to the demon queen, expressing her doubts about whether Itami could even last 1 minute. The demon queen and the former hero had no clue about what this 1-minute thing she was talking about. The maid gladly elaborated that there is only one thing that a 500-year-old demon queen needs, and she explained in the most family-friendly way possible through hands. It's about time for their queen to do the deed after all. If she was not being straightforward enough, Saibet just outrightly blurted out that the queen should finally lose her virginity, or be one forever. And if the demon queen does not hurry, Saibet might just go ahead and steal this new boy from her master outrightly, jump his bones and all that, as they say. The demon queen had to hurry up and grab Itami to cover his ears while she instantly gave Saibet a salary cut for being so inappropriate. That stunt earned her minus 1,000 gold coins. Based on her grim reaction, it seems like this was quite a regular occurrence for the unruly succubus maid. And something tells me that it is more or less for the same reason every time. She was reminded of the anecdote that a boss who cuts your salary to minus 1,000 is like a dragon who sheds its scales. It reveals its true form. It's time to go back to the original business of why they even called Saibet in the first place. New clothes for Itami. In this massive castle, they don't really have new clothes that will fit the frame of an average human, but what they have are the demon queen's brother's wardrobe. Maybe one of those outfits will fit the young man. Saibet was quite reliable when it comes to these things. She really thinks things through when it comes to what's best for the queen and the castle. But still, her succubus brain gets in the way from time to time. The exact moment when that happens was pretty easy to spot. It's when a bright blush appears on her tanned skin. Of course, the demon queen can easily read what this unruly maid was thinking in just a single look for a fraction of a second, and she won't hesitate to screw her head back in with a punch when Saibet starts thinking of lewd stuff. Today's clothing mission has led them to the castle's storage room where some of the queen's brother's clothes are quietly put away. There are mountains upon mountains of garments of many different kinds in this massive room. The three of them had to split up in hopes of finding something that will fit Itami. What's surprising is that these heaps of clothing belong to just one person. He must be quite a fashionista. Thinking about it pissed off the demon queen out of nowhere. Right now, her brother's girlfriend likes dressing him up like a doll. That was why his original wardrobe has been thrown to fill up this storage room. Itami was quite worried that the brother would mind if they took his clothes without permission. But the queen was quite certain that it would be okay. That brother of hers never wore these clothes anyways. He just likes to wear that one black coat that she gave him some time ago. Upon quite a decent chunk of time looking through the mountains of fabrics, Saibet finally found something that caught her eyes and could fit Itami. The queen then turned to the former hero and nonchalantly ordered him to undress so they could see how well it would fit. Itami was quite prone to giving in to pressure, so he immediately started undressing in front of the two ladies, slowly exposing his toned body. The two women seeing this felt like lightning just struck them both. The demon queen even paused her chain smoking for a while in shock. Itami cluelessly looked at both of them and asked why they were looking at him weirdly, as if his ripped body riddled with scars everywhere was not weird at all. Demons, no matter how brazen they might be, consider it rude to ask about scars. It's a cultural thing, but they both really wanted to ask Itami about his abnormal number of marks. Finally, after looking like a homeless bum for 2.5 years, the former hero looked at least decent now. He might not look like a valiant hero, but he looks nice. Of course, if you ask the succubus in the room, she will gladly confess that Itami looked a lot better without any clothes on, pants and all. The Demon Queen had to step in and threaten to cut her salary for the second time today, or Cybet might have just jumped Itami right then and there. When no one's around, the Demon Queen's personal maid likes calling her by her given name, Callie. Today, she was busy with paperwork, and Cybet wanted to give her a drink break. Demon Queen Callie does not like getting interrupted in the middle of work, but Cybet was just way too curious as to where in the world did Itami got that many scars all over his body. Callie had some ideas, but it's hard to say where the young man got those marks without revealing the fact that he's the legendary hero. But anyone could easily tell that the guy has fought against monsters often. Cybet's first thought was that Itami might have been a former adventurer or something, which was a reasonable theory. Callie neither confirmed nor denied her personal attendant's assumption. Still, as far as Cybet knows, not even a demon can endure that many grisly wounds on someone's body. Besides, the mind suffers from wounds at that scale and quantity too. The Queen did not take that into account. It's just another addition to the pile of anguish that the young man has suffered. She knew all too well that constant battles are dangerous for the mind, especially battling against someone like her little brother. This little detail did not escape Cybet's sharp ears. Callie just slipped up and revealed that Itami had fought against the Queen's brother. Callie did not mince words any longer. She could easily deduce that Itami had fought her little brother at some point in time. Only her little bro could leave someone looking like that. But this was quite a revelation to her personal maid. That just means that Itami is supremely strong. Fighting against that monster is one thing, surviving is another. On top of that, Itami is clearly just a weak human. On that note, Cybet remembered something crucial regarding this subject. Her voice started shaking as she informed the Queen that her brother would be returning to the castle today. If those two meet each other now, there's no telling what might happen. Actually, there's no need to theorize what would happen anymore. What Cybet was fearing was already underway in the lobby of the Demon Lord's castle. Itami and the Queen's brother, who still have bandages covering the wounds all over his body, had already seen each other in this unlikely place. They laid eyes on each other, enemies that have fought and beaten each other within an inch of their life. They held neither animosity nor fear. But Lil Bro was not going to let this human roam the castle casually like this. He told Itami to call his sword right this second. They had a gentleman's promise between them. Itami swore that he will kill himself. For a moment, a different kind of smile surfaced on the former hero's face. He then raised his scarred hand to call his blade Sagi. He remembered the promise they made to each other. The legendary blade, Sagi, came bolting through the halls of the castle with incredible speeds, eventually finding its rightful place in Itami's hand. It's about time they fulfilled that promise between the two of them, whatever that may be. It was nearing dusk, and the two men went outside of the Demon Lord's castle to settle their differences. The way they would do it was as straightforward as it came. Itami was obviously nervous as he stumbled over his words. He started the countdown, priming his hands forward as he counted from 3. The Queen's brother looked him directly in the eye, seemingly sizing up the former hero as he counted down to 2. Dark circles were apparent around Itami's eyes, but there was a new luster of life in them compared to when he first barged into the Demon Queen's throne room. He counted down to 1. He began the fight by ordering his legendary sword, Sagi, to jump right into the fray. It was so fast that it whistled through the air, the blade swerving unpredictably, making it incredibly hard to avoid. But Lil Bro was quite a skilled fighter. He was a monster of the Demon Lord's army, after all. He casually jumped and hopped onto the legendary blade like it was a skateboard. Still, this was not the way to deal with a flying sword at all. He was now riding the blade, but its speed did not decrease even a single notch. Itami was awestruck by how bizarre Lil Bro responded to his fast-paced attack as he called Sagi back to his hand. Both fighters were quite absent-minded in this fight. They did not make the moves they would have otherwise made to neutralize the opponent. They even made the amateur mistake of accidentally bumping against each other once Sagi was beckoned back. Now they both lay on the ground. There weren't any significant injuries this time around. All Lil Bro and Itami could say was, "Holy shit." Sagi was also strewn on the dirt between them. There was a knowing silence between the two fighters for a moment. Then Lil Bro started smirking as if he were stifling an incoming laugh, until he could not hold it back anymore. He started laughing as if he had never experienced anything funnier than this stunt in his life. He knew that this young man with crimson hair did not even try to dodge the incoming collision between them when he was perfectly capable of doing so. Lil Bro was holding his stomach, dying laughing at the thought of such a sloppy second-round fight when their first one was anything but. He continued to laugh while Itami's mind reeled about what he had just done. He really didn't dodge, in fact, he didn't even try. A second later, the two fighters were both dying laughing at the ridiculousness of everything between them. They didn't even know what was funny, but it was something that only the two of them shared. When the laughter slowly subsided, Lil Bro tapped the former hero on the shoulder and called his attention. They looked each other in the eyes, and it seemed like there was this special bond of brothers that survived a terrifying ordeal between them. It was like they knew each other on a profoundly deep level. Lil Bro finally spoke honestly and told the former hero that he was glad that Itami was alive. It had been a few days since the young man had cried, but here he was again. Hearing those words from a supposed enemy made tears born from a special connection cascade down his eyes. These past few days or months or however long it had been, it seemed like he had no control over his tear ducts and emotions at all. But today was different. He was in control, and he chose to let it all go. It was just like that night on the balcony with Demon Queen Callie. Lil Bro called him out for crying like a little girl, but he got it. Meanwhile, two pairs of very suspicious eyes were clearly trying to peep from behind the foliage. Seabet was extremely confused. Just 2 months ago, these two almost killed each other to the point of morbid wounds and scars. But now they were talking like good friends, reuniting after a long time. Queen Callie just chalked it up to them being boys. Seabet was a succubus skilled in the art of manipulating men, but even she found this boy's behavior weird and undecipherable, and Callie could not agree more. The battle from earlier might have ended up in a non-confrontational manner, but Itami still felt drained after that encounter, mainly because of the emotional release. He kept pondering why he didn't even try to dodge. He recalled how the two of them sat there in the dirt with Sagi in between. Itami could actively recall Lil Bro's sentiment of being really glad by the fact that he survived after all this time. It kind of made him feel the same way he felt when the Demon Queen graciously gave him a place to live his life in the castle as the new queen's bodyguard. Her promise that everyone would call him by his real name from now on. In this room, he had only Sagi to talk to. He thought that he didn't deserve this light feeling that he was experiencing right this second. That might be the case, but he wanted to try. He wanted to at least try to live again among these demons that treated him so much better than the kingdom of humanity. If he really wanted to go this route, the next thing he needed to figure out was how to even start. At this juncture, he sat up as he was reminded of what his mother once said to him back in the day. A live person is a happy person. It was a pretty simple thought, but it could not be any more difficult to figure out for someone like Itami and his mountains of trauma and baggage. He knew that he was alive, so that was pretty much solved, but the trickier part to fathom was how in the world he could be happy despite everything he experienced. At that moment, the legendary blade Sagi seemingly heard his dilemma and decided to respond in kind. It started emanating light from the gem on its hilt. Itami looked directly into the light, shocked at this surprising development. He was shown a vivid image of a little girl feeding a rabbit beast with a toothy grin, even though she was missing a tooth. The girl called him Brother Hero and asserted that happiness comes from giving and not receiving. Just look at her smile and how big it is, despite not having perfect teeth. She doesn't care at all because she's just so happy to have fed this rabbit, to help a helpless being. Itami felt his head cleared up of any clouds. The answer was right there all along. Sagi just needed to guide and push him to it a little bit. The first step he wanted to do was to get out there into the world and do good for both his and others' sake. Itami just seemed a little too eager to even use the stairs, so he just jumped from the balcony out of his room. Hero diving into the ground and asking one of the maids if she needs any help for anything. The maid was just doing her chores, singing without a care in the world, so she was shocked to hear and see the queen's bodyguard appearing out of nowhere. Seabet was just doing her usual rounds around the castle, and she saw this exact scene. Out in the courtyard, Itami was actually interacting with other people instead of gloomily isolating himself inside his room like usual. It was certainly a bizarre and new sight. She quietly watched from a distance as the young man bashfully helps the maid with her chores. The green-haired maid was very into it. She was practically swooning as fireworks exploded in her heart and head. While Seabet was watching from afar, the first thing she thought about was Demon Queen Callie, and how her boy almost got stolen right under her nose. As if the exchanging of words and intimate glances were not enough, the two had already graduated to gradual physical touch in no time. Another day, another new shenanigan in the peaceful Demon Lord's castle. Demon Queen Callie didn't even know what she was looking at in this situation. She just asked her personal maid, Seabet, if this thing was really necessary. With a grim expression on her face, the succubus resolutely answered that this was a matter that needed to be addressed as soon as possible. She even went as far as essentially abducting poor Itami, securely tying him to a chair and gagging him with tape. This whole stunt looked utterly ridiculous to the queen. Seabet just wanted her boss to wake up to the fact that her boy almost got stolen by another girl, another maid in the castle. Callie didn't even know what this succubus was talking about, nor did she care too much. The maid felt sorry for her master. Sure, she was the great demon queen adored by her people and feared by the enemy, but she was such a foolish woman. To this, Callie threatened to cut the maid's salary in half, but this type of intimidation tactic would not work anymore. It had gotten to the point that she could not cut what didn't exist anymore. Itami had lived in the Demon Lord's castle for only 2 weeks now, and in that short span of time, he kept on doing selfless deeds that led to the establishment of a fan club of some sort. The members included the maid girls and even the queen's little brother. This time, it had become clear to Callie just what was at stake. She finally saw what her personal maid was so desperately trying to make her look at. With these 2 fearsome women teaming up, it was not looking good for our boy. Seabet had an inkling of an idea. She read somewhere that if they cut a male creature's balls, he would become calmer by nature. Callie was blinded by the rage that was building up. She agreed that Itami did not need those balls anyway. Seabet was just glad that her master was finally on board after being so blind for so long. The duo immediately set out to find scissors. Itami was already freaking out as he heard this ridiculously unhinged conversation. He was helplessly bound and gagged, so he could not even scream when the 2 finally decided that they would just use a sword after failing to find scissors. Meanwhile, Lil Bro and his tall blonde girlfriend were visiting and paying respects to someone's grave not far from the castle. It was at this moment that he felt a tingling sensation. The brotherly connection he shared with Itami made him feel as if something was incredibly wrong. This prompted him to cut the grave visit short as he needed to go right now, and fast. Somehow, someway, he knew that his friend needed him. So Lil Bro ran as fast as he could to reach the castle right away. Inside the Demon Queen's office, the 2 women were still debating on the exact method to cut Itami's balls off. They feared that if they used a sword, the young man might die as humans just have inherently weak bodies. Unbeknownst to them, Lil Bro had already snuck in. He tried his best to figure out how to untie the bindings, but Seabet was just too good at it for some reason. He did not even know what Itami did to deserve this treatment. Callie was starting to consider just leaving the former hero tied up for the rest of his life so they wouldn't have to cut his balls off. That plan might not work, though. Lil Bro was just dragging the whole chair to get out of this place first and foremost. Seabet wanted to propose another plan, but Callie already knew that it would most likely be lewd, so she stopped the maid from elaborating further. The next day arrived, and it was as if the almost neutering event had never happened. Itami was lounging around the castle halls, looking at a lone flyer posted on one of the imposing pillars when Queen Callie happened upon him during her usual rounds. He was so engrossed in reading the flyer that he didn't even notice the queen until she spoke up and asked him what he was looking at. The former hero was extremely fascinated by the fireworks flyer posted up. He didn't know that demons celebrated the fireworks festival too. It turned out that it was an interracial holiday celebrated by all. Every race on this continent had its own version of the fireworks festival. That's because on this day, everyone remembered those who were no longer with them in this world. Death was a universal experience, so it was only fitting that everyone celebrated those who had passed. Itami was clearly fixated not just on the flyer but on the event itself. Queen Callie could see that. So, she went ahead and asked the young man if he wanted to go to the festival without a second thought. Itami answered that he would like to, but he had the duties of serving as Callie's bodyguard, sticking to her closely at every waking hour. At times like this, he should be ready to protect the queen in case something unexpected happened. Callie was kind of surprised to hear something very logical from this boy. Still, she knew that he badly wanted to go to the fireworks ceremony. Looking at his hands, he was even clutching a recipe for a firework tightly. She inwardly thought that Itami must have really wanted to go for some reason. Of course, there's a reasonable compromise to this. If he couldn't go without her, then they should just go together. The look in his eyes was quite dim, as if remembering something or someone. Demon Queen Callie started blushing at the fact that if she brought up the possibility of going to the festival together, it would totally look and sound like she was asking him out on a date. Thinking that it wouldn't be too bad, she just brute forced her way out of the awkwardness and blurted out the question of maybe going to the fireworks festival together. She sounded composed, but her blush told a different story. She continued that since she also wanted to go to the festival, they might as well just go together to diffuse some of the thick tension. Now she wasn't the only one blushing. Itami was getting red up to his ears too. It seemed like the plan was locked in. But first, they needed to give that firework recipe that Itami was holding so tightly to the demon firework master. This whole interaction was, of course, under the scrutiny of 3 very familiar figures hiding inside a potted plant. Lil Bro felt like his ears were lying to him. Hearing his big sister ask someone out like that was surreal. Sabet assured him that they heard it all correctly. The Demon Queen was going on a festival date with her bodyguard. So, Operation Kali X Atami was underway. It had just started from this minute forward. The agents even had cool sunglasses to go with the covert operation. The Demon Queen and the former hero left the castle and headed to the outskirts of the demon territory where the famed Granny Hang resides. She was a sweet old demon woman. If you see an old-looking demon, then that must mean that they must really be old by human standards. She just turned her head lightly and greeted the demon lord. Callie pushed Itami as she stated their purpose of visit, to order a firework for the upcoming firework festival. Her bodyguard already had the recipe in his hands. Itami promptly showed Granny Hang the tattered firework recipe. It looks like it has seen better days. There are red stains all over the paper, which I assume were blood. Granny Hang was pleased at the sight of such a traditional recipe. She's been making fireworks for festivals for 500,000 years now. And in that massive time frame, she could not even remember the last time she made a firework for a normal human. Itami is a polite boy. He respectfully handed the recipe to the old woman, thanking her for doing this favor. But before he could finish blurting out his thanks, the granny demon had already brought out a strange apparatus to nick him in his hand. Queen Callie forgot to inform him that this old demon uses blood in making her fireworks. That's why she drew some from Itami in the blink of an eye. The granny already had a feeling that this particular firework would be interesting. She turned her head to her two visitors, curious as to what in the world is the Demon Queen doing with a human out in the open. What the granny saw was the two likely lovebirds tending to one another. Itami was still shaking in shock while Callie blew on the tiny nick in his finger. While synthesizing the would-be fireworks, the granny posed a question to the two. She asked the kids if they knew how the demons started to celebrate the firework festival. Itami confidently answered that he read somewhere the fact that 500,000 years ago, the first king of the human kingdom made the first fireworks. That earned him a quick and loud disagreement from the old demon. She continued that the story about the first king of humans was made by dumb humans for dumb humans. Furthermore, that pesky human race is always trying to appropriate the accomplishments of demons as their own. While she finishes up this explosive, Granny decided to tell these two the true story of the beginning of the firework festival. And it all started a long time ago. It was so long ago that the whole continent could still be considered a peaceful place. The events that led to the development of modern-day fireworks started one night 500,000 years ago with a demon girl lounging around an open field. That open field is now referred to as the Demon Kingdom's territory. The demon girl loved laying down on the serene grasslands while taking in the sight of the beautiful stars. It was perfect. The night sky was gorgeous. But if she was asked to change one thing, she would love to bring the stars a little closer to her. As if God had answered that request of hers, a bright light started flying through the air. It looked like a star that was trying to rise up and join the other ones up high. And then it exploded in a booming manner. The small light it once emitted was scattered all over the skies, right above where the demon girl was looking at. It was beautiful, perhaps even more beautiful than the stars that she loved so dearly. She felt her heart skip a beat at the sight of the colorful burst. It was so close. She eventually got up from the grasslands and started running through the woods, trying to track down just where in the world did that exploding star came from. She knew that the mysterious thing came from this way, and she was desperate to get to the bottom of this mystery. The demon girl can feel it. She can feel that she's just a few meters away from fulfilling her dream of bringing the stars in the night sky just a little bit closer. Perhaps not just a little. Perhaps with this, she can actually get so close that she would be able to touch the beautiful stars. Before the demon girl knew it, she was panting in exhaustion while tears were flowing down her eyes, thinking of the possibility that her dream was about to come true. What she found on the other side of the flying, exploding star was a human. A young man cursing at himself for not getting the brightness of his so-called firework quite right. The demon girl blushed at the sight of the young man. She knew in her heart that this person was the one that could grant her only wish in life, and maybe even more. She was inquisitive by nature, and the young man was quite welcoming. The demon girl had never seen something quite like this bright thing called fireworks. It sounded pretty cool to her. She wanted to see him make one of these things again. The young man immediately perked up. He stopped feeling bad for himself for not getting it right earlier. With renewed determination and motivation, he prepared to go at it again. Just like her, this is his main goal in life. The spirit of ambition danced in his eyes as he vowed to make the biggest and brightest firework that the world has ever seen. It will shine even brighter than the stars above. What he'll make will shine so brightly that his mother will be able to see it now no matter how far or where she might be. The demon girl could feel the kid's spirit as he expressed his will to make something that will be seen even by people in another world. She admired everything about that will and everything about that boy like a beloved tale. It was like they were mixing imagination with real life. It was surreal. The young man caught himself getting swept by his emotions again and apologized for sounding so foolish when they've just met a few moments ago. But his determined look impressed the demon girl immensely. Instead of admonishing him for being so ambitious, she just looked him in the eye and said, "No." He was not being foolish or anything like that. It does not sound foolish to her, at least. The night that the two met was the same night that the budding seed of love started to bloom for the first time. She knows what it feels like to have a dream, but she doesn't know how to achieve hers until now. The demon girl thinks that the young man is incredibly brave. And in a world where dreamers are far and few between, having so much passion for one thing is wonderfully unique. Aiming for the extraordinary things in this mundane everyday, boring life is what makes life itself worth living. From that point on, even though they've just met, the demon girl has steeled her resolve to stand by the young man's side and watch his dreams unfold like stars in the night sky. She just wanted to share in his incredibly journey as those dreams slowly became a reality. A chance for her to love a dreamer like herself with each heartbeat until the last breath of her life. A few years ago, the demon girl had picked up her fascination with the stars from her mom. She asked her why they shine every night without fail, and why don't they get tired. Her mom patiently explained that stars are like special friends who never get tired of making others happy. A star is someone who loves making other people smile. So every single night, they put on their brightest, shiniest outfit just to put a genuine smile on your face. That is what stars do every night without fail. They twinkle and shine to brighten up this dark world. They make you feel safe and happy. The demon girl's other question remained, why don't the stars ever take a break? Her mom continued that they just don't. Stars are always up there, watching over everyone. They're like guardians of the night sky, and they want to be there for everyone whenever they have the slightest urge to look up, no matter when that is. It's just their way of telling everyone that even when things seem dark, there's always a little bit of light to guide us. For some reason, the demon girl thought about this memory with her mom from long ago. She already knew the reason why that is. She thinks that she had finally found the shiniest and brightest star in the world, and she saw it in that young man's spirited eyes. He has quickly become her own star, effectively fulfilling her dream to make the stars come closer just a little. It turns out that she just needed one. From this moment, she would not let anything get in the way of her love and her dream. He has eyes full of hope, brimming with intense energy that can bring anything into life. Sure, he might be a little bit of a show-off and try hard all the time, but he perseveres, and that's what matters. In that sense, he is strong, stronger than most. He was kind, always smiling while doing all sorts of things. He finds happiness in all the little things. So she tries to help him with everything that she can offer. But reality is cruel. Life can only give you so much, and the demon girl can't help the young man when it comes to a lot of things. He works hard. He works hard for both of their sakes to the point of passing out in exhaustion at times. She tried her best as his wife, the love of his life. She supported him with all the strength she could muster. He was her dear star after all. The demon girl loved the young man for a long time. She loved him until he was an old man who could barely walk a few steps, and she still looked like a young demon woman. She loved Izumi the firework maker until he finally finished what he could confidently say was his life's work. Even with gray hair and a wrinkled face, the man's eyes never changed. He still had the eyes of a dreamer, the eyes of someone who wanted to give something extraordinary out into the world, until he was satisfied to call what he made a true firework. His eyes might still be brimming with light, but his body has gone frail. Every so often, he needs to take a rest under the shade of the woods where the lovers first met. The demon girl told him not to force himself too much so many times already, but Izumi's still young at heart. But the detriments of time were not lost on him. He knows this loving wife of his has been constantly worrying about him these days. He could not find the right words to thank her enough. Countless thank yous will never suffice for the love and care that she gave him for many years. Even after all this time, the demon girl still blushes whenever Izumi is being nice to her. Tonight was the night. The husband and wife were just waiting for the sky to darken and the stars to come out and play. They've been together for decades, yet the demon girl still feels comfort when resting her head on Izumi's once wide and strong shoulders. At his twilight years, Izumi could not help but remember his mother and the house they lived in. He remembered how she was always smiling when looking at firework displays. He was certain that his mother's smile was brighter than any other firework in the whole world. But the nagging question in the poor young man's heart was when his mother would ever look at him like she used to look at those fireworks. For a long time, fireworks did not make Izumi smile. They made him weep in sorrow instead. Fireworks symbolized the uncertainty of his life. They reminded him of the cruel hands of fate, the cruel hands of the adults around him when he was little. Instead of being swallowed by the shadow of grief, he set out with the mission to make the brightest firework the world has ever seen. If he does that, maybe things will turn out differently. Maybe the scars of his past won't hurt so much anymore. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in his life, Izumi's mother would look at him like how she looked at fireworks. The young man went on a mission to please his scumbag of a mother and reached the end point with something so much better. In his desperate attempt to make the brightest thing in the world, Izumi found the most radiant woman in his eyes. The moment when he finally saw the fruits of his decades-long labor was shared with the woman he loves. He successfully made the brightest fireworks that the world has ever seen, but its luster paled in comparison to his muse. As Izumi's heartbeat slowly fell out of sync, as the inevitable father time finally started catching up to him, he did not even look at the skies to see his masterpiece. He just looked at his wife's beautiful smile. He trembles as breath becomes ragged and his heart loses its rhythm. The last thing that Izumi the dreamer saw was the most beautiful thing in the world. Brighter than any firework he could make, brighter than any stars in the sky, his wife's genuine smile. Her eyes are full of love and devotion. Her mouth that never stops speaking encouraging words. Izumi had a tough start in life, and he ended it with a beautiful explosion. The demon girl got close to the only star that mattered, but time and life cruelly took him too soon. When the fireworks died down, she was left with the cold, dark night. No star in the skies could ever compare. Izumi has died with a contented smile on his face. He died a star's death. Now she is all alone, back to square one, back to the days of not having anything to strive for, back to a life without her star. Before totally succumbing to the wheels of time, Izumi managed to scribble down his last thoughts for his beloved. He expressed gratitude for the time they spent together. His last wish is for his ashes to be turned into a firework. The demon girl didn't know what to make of it. It was all so sudden. One second they were sitting together, the next she was alone. The next few days were a blur. She was in a constant state of confusion and disbelief. The next thing you know, she was back in the house, burning Izumi's remains to get his ashes. She carefully followed the recipe that he learned from the years of watching her husband do the painstaking job of firework making. She fulfilled his final wish for his ashes to be turned into one last firework. In the woods where they first met, she quietly lit up a small arrangement of her husband's final will. The demon girl did all the motions right. She did everything without even thinking about it. It was like she's on autopilot. Izumi's soul, his ambition, his dream, his life, everything has been packed inside 3 tiny explosive vessels. His final explosions were not particularly massive. They were not particularly bright. They were modest. They were vulnerable. They were made with grief and love. It was Izumi's final contribution to the world. The demon girl watched as that young man she fell for instantly turned into nothing but a colorful memory. And when the colors died down, she was left with nothing at all. For the first time in a while, she had a different reaction other than the catatonic state that she was in. Her hands trembled while she reached for her face. The tears, the pain, the love, the longing, and everything in between. Everything came crashing down like an explosion of one massive firework. She was devastated. It took everything in her power just to stay upright. When everything had been released, she was left an empty shell of her former self. The demon girl, if you haven't figured it out yet, is named Hang, as in Granny Hang. Izumi was the one who taught her that where he was from, in a different world, people shoot a lot of fireworks once a year. He eagerly told her the story about how his mom was the happiest person in the world when that day comes every year. And when his mom was happy, Izumi was happy too. Izumi had long since connected his love of fireworks to his mom. It sounds stupid, but that was the only thing pushing him forward back then. Hang remembered Izumi saying that thanks to fireworks, he can still remember his mom's face. And maybe through fireworks, Hang will be able to do the same to him. Back to the present, thousands of years later, Granny Hang has concluded her story of how this day helps demons to not forget the faces of those they loved a long time ago. No matter how much time passes since a special person has perished, the fireworks that you both looked at will never let you forget their face. Any important person who you lost a long time ago will be alive in that brief moment of beautiful explosion. That is why firework recipes like the one that Itami carries are made. The bright light of the firework made from his blood, and this recipe will bring the person back to life for a moment. Just a little moment while the fireworks fire colors the sky with its hue. Just as the story concluded, Granny Hang, handed the former hero the firework that he wanted to make with that tattered recipe. With this thing, he'll finally be able to see his teacher again. That woman was crass. She likes to refer to Itami as Idiot Boy, back when they haven't even been introduced to each other. Today is the day that Operation Kali X Itami goes in full swing, with Lil Bro leading the charge. Tomorrow night is the official start of the mission, the night of the fireworks festival. Lil Bro is taking this quite seriously, with Sabit and his girlfriend forming the rest of the team. There is only one main goal. Lil Bro chose to demonstrate that goal using his unsettling voodoo dolls of his friend and big sister, making them kiss vigorously. The queen's personal maid is all in. She thinks it's a perfect idea. Lil Bro's girl, on the other hand, feels quite queasy at the thought. She's quite shy. This was a perfect plan if it were not for one significant and glaring problem. Pulling out his unsettling voodoo dolls again, he started ramming the two against each other in frustration at the fact that Itami and Kali are not making any effort to kiss by themselves. The first step of the task force is to figure out just why these two young and good-looking couples refuse to engage in some lip-to-lip action. When Lil Bro asked for ideas, the first thing that came to the succubus's mind was that maybe the demon queen does not like the size of Itami's package. Hearing this made Lil Bro's girl blush to high heavens. It was good that Seabet was engaging with the planning phase, but Lil Bro just does not see her suggestion being the case. He thinks that his sister does not like Itami because the poor guy looks like a burned stick or something even worse. Either way, the answer is quite simple. They should just make Itami more kissable. That is when his girl comes into the picture. They desperately need her help in this mission. There's no one who can fix this problem other than his beloved girlfriend. Itami can probably be easily spotted if you just look at the corners of the castle where a young man could cry or something. It is Lil Bro's mission to find and make Itami more presentable. After getting the fireworks dedicated to his teacher, Itami could not help but reminisce about his experiences with her. Like that night in front of the bonfire after a bloody battle. The legendary blade, Sagi, was covered with the blood of enemies that the hero just slaughtered. Even up to that day, his teacher still liked calling him an idiotic boy. She just refused to call him by his name, or even hero for that matter. This woman just looked at him like he was a clueless waste of space sometimes. Her crass tongue was quite harsh at times. That night she asked him who he really was. Itami was quite new to this world back then. He didn't even have the countless scars on his body and the gnarly mark on his face. He just answered that he was the hero. This was back when he still held pride in being dubbed and labeled as humanity's champion, the hero, when he believed that he would be the one to kill the demon lord and save the humans or something idiotic like that. He was full of life and motivation back then, and the green-haired mentor just looked at him with pity in her eyes. Then upon realizing that he was serious, she stifled laughter by sucking in air, not letting the rude amusement go. But she ultimately failed to contain the incoming chuckle. She laughed so hard that she started crying. When asked why the hell would she laugh at his mission, she just dismissed the pissed-off Itami as it was nothing. She just felt like laughing. Back to the current day in the Demon Lord's castle, Lil Bro's girl is disgruntledly roaming the halls in hopes of finding that bodyguard. She doesn't even like the guy, and she was supposed to make him kissable somehow. Actually, she hated that young man with a passion. Every time she thinks about the state that her beloved was in after his duel with Itami, she feels weak, and then the anger takes over. She hates that new queen's bodyguard to the bone for what he did to her man. Add to that the difficulty of finding a person in this gigantic maze of a castle. She could not help but tremble in rage as she pulls on her hair in frustration. After yapping and trying to control the sea of anger that she was feeling, it was like the heavens did not want her to lose control. Itami was just standing there in front of her, lounging around like an aimless zombie. Fast forward to the night of the fireworks festival. A handsome young man with newly trimmed hair was standing amidst the bustling crowd, seemingly looking for someone. It looks like Lil Bro's girlfriend did a magnificent job in making the former hero just a little bit more kissable. With a new fit and fresh cut, he looked much better than when he initially entered the Demon Lord's castle, looking like a homeless bum. The lights of the festival were bright, but the discernible darkness in the young man's eyes was still visible. He looked a lot better, though. He kept on remembering his mentor. That night when she asked him who the hell he was. His reverie was broken when a sultry voice broke through the murmurs of the crowd, calling on to him, calling his name. He turned around, still not used to the fact that the demons around him were kind enough to use his actual name. As soon as he laid eyes on the owner of the sultry voice, he felt his eyes dilate and his cheeks become a little warmer with blush. Demon Queen Kali was out of her usual combat armor attire, substituting it with a traditional festival robe. It was the first time that he saw her in a different outfit. His change in the drip and hairstyle department also did not go unnoticed. The Demon Queen was surprised. Itami nonchalantly replied that he did get a cut. He has her lil bro's girlfriend to thank for this one. For some reason, Queen Callie was still harboring some deep, deep hatred for that girl. She likes calling that tall blonde a bitch. Just when the confused Itami was about to inquire about that choice of words, the queen was already rushing to his side. Callie was quite strong. She's a demon overlord after all, so she could just easily drag her bodyguard through the streets to avoid talking about that hateful blonde. Amongst the crowd, that same woman was just standing menacingly near one of the festival stands. It looks like she also decided to wear a traditional robe. You can never see her eyes under those egregious bangs, so it is quite difficult to figure out just what she was thinking at any given moment. But at that moment you could tell that she was furious with what she heard. This was the gratitude she received for her efforts. A few days ago, Lil Bro's girl essentially abducted Itami while he was roaming the castle halls like a zombie to give him a forced makeover. While she had him strapped to the chair, Itami did not know what was going on. Her mind was stuck on the image of her man's condition after that horrible fight. She had her scissors ready. It was supposed to be for cutting hair, but there were brief moments when she had the urge to just cut or stab Itami on the neck. Meanwhile, the former hero was just behaving politely. He was getting a free haircut after all. It's also too quiet in the room. He thinks that he should maybe strike up a conversation. Her thoughts were vastly different, though. She got murder on her mind. Itami spoke up. He told her that his big sister used to cut his hair like this. That was way back when he was in a different world, which he disguised as home village. But when he became a hero disguised as an adventurer, now he can't go to his big sister for haircuts, as it's just too far. Because of that, Itami has had this mess on his head for a long time now. This conversation was dangerous. There were multiple times when he almost slipped up and revealed himself as the hero. As the tall blonde continued to cut his hair with some occasional thoughts of slitting his throat, Itami was enduring the awkward silence between them. She finally opened her mouth and blurted out her first words to him. She asked him if he was lonely, that nobody could cut his hair since becoming an adventurer. Itami honestly answered that that's not exactly the case, as there were some people in his time in this world that cared. He used to have the best teacher in the world and a little girl who used to call him Big Brother. They were happy back then. He could not forget how rambunctious, crass, and loud that mentor of his was. He also could not forget how sweet and caring that little girl that he looked at as a little sister was back then. But misfortune has never stopped following him in this godforsaken land. That little girl's innocent smile turned into pain and shock when her head was impaled on a stake. The best teacher one could ask for has died in his arms after a grueling battle with superior powers. One way or another, he always ended up losing everything, losing everyone important to him. Hearing Itami recalling his losses actually made Blondie cry unconsciously. In hopes of not looking soft, she insisted that she doesn't cry. She just condenses sweat in her eyes. The hairstyling session lasted quite long, but she was amazing with the scissors. Every cut was perfectly done. It was A1 premium service all in all. At the tail end of the session, she started thinking about Noah again, also known as Lil Bro. She would not be able to forget the night that they found Noah after the fight against Itami. They did their best with what they must treat him. The poor guy could not even eat without help. Noah said that his opponent was injured as badly as he was, and they did not think much of it at that time. Now that they know who Itami was, how kind and hardworking he is as a person, she begins to think about how much he must have suffered with all those grievous injuries when nobody was there to take care of him. Of all people, she would be one of the few that fully know just how it feels when you are left completely alone. She was an elf in the castle of the demon lord. To make matters worse, she has cut ears. In demon culture, and even elven culture, having your ears cut is a sign of big shame. She had finally finished Itami's makeover, and it was glorious. This man that she just gave a haircut to dared to touch someone who truly loved her even despite all her flaws, despite her shameful cut ears. Noah is a kind soul. He's the brother of the demon lord, but he's a good person. He easily forgave Itami for what they did to each other. But Blondie just cannot find it within herself to forgive and forget. As she was thinking of that in the middle of the festival crowd, Noah came in and gave her a childish fright. Of course, that earned him a full-powered hit on the top of the head for being a childish idiot. Noah and his girl eventually made up, and they are now going on a stroll around the festival, perusing the stalls and enjoying the celebrations while holding each other's hands. He got her a caramel apple to munch on while they were walking around. It looked like she liked sweets. For some reason, she wanted to look at Noah from the side, her cut left ear protruding out of her hair. But she was not the only one bearing the cut of shame in the vicinity. Noah had it too. Both of their left ears were shamefully cut for some reason. Noah called her attention while she was busy staring into his left ear. With his usual laid-back tone, he admitted that she did a good job in making Itami ultra-kissable. In fact, she was so good that even Lil Bro himself wanted to give the guy a kiss. But on a more serious note, this means a lot to Noah, and he was grateful to his girl for going through with it even though it was a tough ask. He knows that she hates humans, especially ones that dared to hurt her loved ones. She still went through with the assignment to help his friend, and Noah could not appreciate it more. In that moment of genuine words, she could not help but blush. Noah may be childish at times, but he can be quite mature in his own right. Moments like this one make her remember that horrible memory when she was captured by human poachers. Those people are messed up in their heads. They wanted to try what elf ears tasted like. Her family does not have enough money to buy her back, so the kidnappers were essentially free to do what they wanted to the little elf girl. She was defenseless, vulnerable, and scared. But in that moment, the voice of another child yelling at the kidnappers to stop touching her gave the little elf girl a glint of hope. The kidnappers almost forgot that they had another captive in one of the cages. They caught this kid with other demons near the border of human-demon territory. It was a young Noah, a demon child that was evidently tortured throughout the span of his stay in this hellhole. The kidnappers agreed to take their grubby hands off from the elf girl, but they would need to eat something else for that to happen. Their counteroffer was that they'll just cut and eat Noah's ears instead. These kidnappers knew the cultural significance and shame that demons hold for those that have their ears cut. The kidnapper held up the elf girl in front of him, asking a little kid if he was ready to take on that shame for the sake of an unknown elf who was essentially abandoned even by her family. Noah does not even have to do anything anymore. His family is royalty, so they've agreed to buy him back. The kidnapper added that his father will be very disappointed when he comes back to the castle with the mark of shame. But even as a kid, Noah was as decisive as one can be. His father taught him that a demon's role in the world is to help weak creatures. And looking at the eyes of that poor little girl, there's no one in this place that needs help more than she does. Even if it costs him a life of shame, even if they take away his honor, even if it hurts like hell, he will gladly refuse himself as a proud member of the royalty. Noah will clench his teeth and take the pain silently as a true demon. Until now, that grown-up elf girl still remembers how resolute and determined Noah's eyes looked like back in that dungeon. Her, on the other hand, was just a helpless little girl that has given up hope, full of fear for what's about to happen. Those painful memories have never left her mind even until now. Every day that passes by, the gratitude and love she feels for Noah continuously grow. She would do anything for this man. Back to our main couple, Callie and Itami have gotten out of the chaos of the main street where the festival stalls and the people were clamoring. They both prefer the quiet of the cliff above the market. Besides, this is the best view to watch the fireworks. It should be starting soon, but it looks like they arrived a little early, so they will need to wait just a little bit longer. Before the fireworks even started, the night sky was already putting on a show as a meteor shower started raining down. Itami stared at the stars intently, moved by its vastness and beauty. Queen Callie did not do the same. She wanted to look at her bodyguard. She wanted to figure out what he was thinking. While she was lost in thought, looking at the young man, she started to recall their first meeting for some reason. Itami looked like a homeless bum, but what's more striking was how he looked like a lost soul that just wanted his suffering to finally end. Without thinking much further, Callie decided to ask him why he wanted to die that day. Itami took a pause for a moment, thinking of how exactly to answer that extremely loaded question. He finally opened his mouth and just answered the first thing that came to mind. He wanted the demon queen to kill him at that time because he felt like he was at the bottom of a toilet clogged with shit. Itami did not know anything about this world at all. Because of that fact, he just chose to trust those that had summoned him here, the people that tore him away from his home world. And when he finally started to understand how this world works, he had already lost those people that have grown near and dear to his heart. Understanding the whole situation between demons and humans, he started hating himself. He felt shame and regret for his deplorable actions in hindsight. Whenever he has to see his reflection in mirrors or in water, he's immediately hit with the urge to vomit. For someone deemed as the savior of humanity, the supposed hero of the story, his feelings for the whole thing were anything but heroic. To that, the demon queen just posed a very simple question. She asked if Itami understands that it's not necessary for him to be the hero of the story. As if he was just hit with a ton of bricks, his worldview started collapsing when Callie continued to ask him if he even wanted to be the hero in the first place. He has never heard of that question in the limited time that he has been trapped in this foreign world. What does it even mean to be a hero? Itami started spiraling until he eventually found himself recalling his time in the big city, in his home world with his sister constantly calling him her hero. but in an entirely different way of being one in the new world. She calls him a hero whenever he saves her tummy with his amazing cooking. He always insists that she should not thank him for things like this, as she has been working 2 jobs just so they could survive. This much is nothing compared to what she has been constantly doing for him their entire lives. His sister loved him very much. To her, there is no one kinder and cuter than her baby brother. Likewise, she believes that she's just doing what a big sister was supposed to do. She's even sad that she can't do more and provide more. But there is still hope, and he does not need to worry. She is certain that she will eventually make a huge discovery in the field of string theory. Then the money will come in like a free-flowing river from that point on. Since their mom died, the siblings have had some rough times together. But she assured her little brother that there was no need to worry. His reliable big sister will eventually take care of everything and they will be able to live a life of comfort. It was at this very moment that the event that drastically changed the course of the siblings' life took place. The whole tiny apartment was filled with bright green light. And Itami was the source of this anomaly. Bit by bit, his body was consumed by this mysterious green light, seemingly consuming him from head to toe. The last thing he did before being transported to another world was call out to his sister with fear plastered all over his face, confusion in his eyes. The view of the apartment and his reliable big sister was slowly replaced by the view of a massive room that almost looked like a cathedral. Then came the grating, pompous voice of the man that made his life hell for the past 2.5 years. The man called him the name that would stick and make him sick to the stomach whenever he hears it. Hero? A foolish king with all the wealth, prestige, and authority in the kingdom. The man that would kill his will to live has summoned him to have the so-called honor to save the kingdom. Looking back, one of the first things that the king had ordered him to do was be grateful that his life had meaning now. That alone should have been a massive red flag. He did not ask for this. He did not know where he was, who this arrogant prick was, and what the hell happened to his sister. That's how he ended up in this magical world, and the rest of the story of our depressed hero will be coming soon. Don't miss it.